Hello, welcome to Pecan Corner. Today I'm going to make a dish I call, I guess I'm going to call it West Texas baked steak. It's a baked dish that uses cubed steak, and I got it out of my gas company bill one time years ago. It's very easy to make. You put it together, put it in the oven, and just bake it. One of the reasons I always liked it so much was because if you forgot to thaw something out and you have some cubed steaks in the freezer, you know, they're usually packaged, they're flat on the package, and so all you have to do is thaw them just enough to get that packaging off of them, and you can just put them frozen in your pan with your other ingredients and put it in the oven to bake. So, you know, for those days when you're coming home and you've got to cook supper after work, that can be a real blessing. The other nice thing about it is it's another one of those dishes that takes a small amount of meat per serving, and it stretches it a long way while you still have a real piece of meat on your plate. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to serve this with baked potatoes tonight. You can do it with rice or mashed potatoes or noodles, but tonight I wanted baked potatoes. So I've got my oven preheating. This is one of those days when I'm going to use all my old ugly pans that are, you know, everybody has our favorite old pans that we don't want to part with. They just fit. This one was the one that my mother-in-law made rolls in, always baked her rolls in, so it's kind of meaningful to us. One of my other videos, I rendered suet and made and saved my beef fat, and so I'm going to use that on my potatoes to rub my potatoes with. You can use lard or you can use butter, whichever one, or you could use oil if you have if you prefer to use an olive oil, you could. But this is a good opportunity to use that beef fat that I saved. See how hard it is? This is the tallow that you can tell when it's been in the I keep it in the refrigerator. But you can tell how hard it is. It just breaks apart. So you can see why people made candles out of it way back in the old days, when that was the fat that they had the best access to. So I'm going to scoop some of this out. Now, because it's so cold, it's not going to rub very well on my potatoes, so I'm going to heat it up just a little bit before I rub it on there. Let me put this back up. That beef tallow is really good for frying in. It has a high burn point, and which is why it worked for candles. It's a very efficient fat, and it doesn't it holds up to those high heats. I've got the piece of meat that I'm going to use is a couple of days ago I made chicken fried steaks, and then I did another thing where I used the leftover chicken fried steak and made smothered steak. Well, this is the other piece of meat that was in that package. So I have a piece of tenderized round steak that I'm going to use. But normally I make this dish with those little cube steaks, those little minute steaks that are about this big, and there's usually 4 to a package, and they've been tenderized so they're really flat. But this is going to work fine. I'm probably going to leave it whole and just put it in the pan whole. All right, now I love the baked potatoes at Outback Steakhouse. We don't have an Outback here, and we don't go out to eat hardly ever, but boy, those baked potatoes are so good. So that's what I try to replicate a little bit when I do mine. I cover them with oil, and then I sprinkle salt all over them. You can feel the richness of that beef fat. It's just it has a heavier feel to it. It's actually good for your skin. I'm being picky about not wanting to get it all over my hands, but the truth is it's good for your skin, and it's good for dry skin, and it'll help during this cold weather. All right, these little pieces of foil. Every time I tear off too much, or like these, I had to heat up a bunch of garlic bread, and on one piece that went around, it wasn't long enough, so I just laid these over the top. Well, there's nothing wrong with them, and so I just saved them, and I'm using them now for this. No need to waste the foil that you've done nothing but cover a plate of cookies or some bread with. Now, if you cover meats and things, then what I do with that is I rinse it off and I save it for recycling. We don't have recycling in our garbage here, but once I discovered what the price is for aluminum, I just have a little sack here next to my garbage, and I save all of my aluminum. We don't use many aluminum cans, but you know, it adds up. Why throw it away when I can save it and cash it in eventually? Or my grandchild can cash it in, you know? That's another one of those things, you know? Even if we're not going to do it, somebody else can take advantage of that. No need to be wasteful if we don't have to be. I'm baking 4 potatoes. It's just Paul and me, but what I do is I bake 4 since I've got the oven going anyway. And the 2 that we don't eat tonight, I will save, and they make wonderful home fries to go with breakfast or any other meal. And they'll keep a long time cold in the refrigerator after they've been baked. So they're a really good addition to breakfast. Paul probably want to have a potato taco for his breakfast or lunch one day this week. I've got my oven preheated. I'm going to get these started before I work on my meats, because they're going to take a lot longer. The meat will take a good hour to bake. If you're using the cube steaks, though, it usually only takes about 45 minutes. So that's another reason it's a good dish to serve to cook on a work night. Anything you can do to help yourself when you're working, and you want to feed your family good, healthy food. You know, anything that you can do where you're not having to go to a lot of trouble after work will help. All right, now those are going to go in the oven. There we go. Now my next order of business is these are my these tomatoes I canned myself. This is the first year that I've used my pressure canner, and but these were not. I didn't pressure can these. I canned these with the water bath canner, I think. Okay. You can use 1 large can of 1 large can of tomatoes, or you can use any kind. You can use crushed tomatoes. You can use diced. I always like the diced because they look good. But these are crushed. These ones that I made myself. All right, I'm going to lay that little of that in the bottom. And then I'm going to put my meat in there. I don't want to touch that with my hands because I want my hands to stay clean. So I'm going to use my fork to take this out of the package here. Guess I'm going to have to give them a good wash anyway. That's all right. This meat was packed. You know, it was packed to a package, so it's like a family pack when you buy it. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I'd buy those family packs and I wouldn't get around to separating them before I stuck them in the freezer. Well, once you open them up, you kind of got to use them then, and that's what happened to me here. So, all right, now then, I'm going to add some salt. And some pepper. And some green chili. These are, you can use 1 small can of green chilies. I prefer the mild ones. If you like the spicy ones, that's fine. But it needs to be green chilies, not bell pepper, to get the right flavor with this dish. What I do is, I don't really always use a whole can, or if I have those bigger cans, I just stick the rest of it in a baggie and pop it in the freezer and put a date on it, and then it's available the next time I need some green chilies. So I'm going to pour these green chilies over my meat. Some diced onion. I'm going to get things where you can see them. Paul's busy working on editing a long video, so he's not available to help me film tonight. He's good at that. I'm glad that he does that. I'm not very tech savvy in some ways. There's some things I know a lot about, but those visual things are not my forte. Just use about one medium onion or half of a large onion. The gravy that this makes its own gravy, and it is fabulous. I will have it over my baked potato, and it's good. Even cold, almost like a gazpacho soup. It's so tasty. What did I do with my spoon? Oh, here it is. Okay. As you can tell, I talk to myself, so it's actually proven to be a real benefit in making these videos. My mother-in-law talked to herself, and if you asked her about it, she'd say, "Hey, that's the only intelligent conversation I can get." All right, and earlier this year, back in September, I found baby portobellos on sale, on clearance, and so I dehydrated them. Because this has so much liquid in it, I'm not going to rehydrate them before I put them in here. I'm just going to drop them in here. If you don't have dried mushrooms, use one small can of the ends and pieces. Is what I usually buy. I don't spend the money for the buttons. Or about a half a cup of fresh mushrooms. The interesting thing to me about drying the mushrooms is they held their size. So there's almost as much in volume dehydrated as there was when they still had their moisture content in them. All right, oops, I'll get a lid for that. All right, now I'm going to pour the rest of my liquid over my tomatoes, and the liquid. You want all the liquid in that. If you use canned mushrooms, just pour that liquid right in there too. If you're using your canned green chilies, just pour the liquid in there. Let me get some. Cover it with foil, and I'm going to put this. Let me show it to you there. Can you see that? I'm going to put it in the oven, and I'm going to bake it. Like I said, this big steak is not as tender as those little steaks, and so it's going to take at least an hour, probably an hour and a half is what I'll leave it in there for. Your other little steaks will only take about 45 minutes, and I'll be back. All right, welcome back. I've taken it out of the oven. Like I said, it cooked for, I split the difference, so it cooked for an hour and 15 minutes. The potatoes were done after about an hour. The mushrooms rehydrated fairly well. They still have a little more chewy texture than they normally would, but they have a good flavor. But the rest of it came out beautiful. Let me get it up here where you can see it. Flip my little thing around. There we go. Let me get this up there. There we go. All right, there you go. Oops. There we go. All right. Thank you. I hope you'll subscribe. Enjoy.